talking with Dave Berlin, who's involved with something really interesting at BP Castrol. Talk to us a little bit about the role that you have today.
Sure. So at Castrol, we've about 5 years ago, maybe a little more, we started a group internally that was looking at areas of growth outside of our core lubricants business. As you start to see what's happening in the marketplace, electronic vehicles, all the different changes that are happening, hybrid vehicles, there's less lubricant used in those types of transportation. So it was the foresight of the leadership of Castrol to say, you know what, we need to be looking outside of our core business for other growth areas. At the same time, they recognized there was a big digital frontier starting. So the thought was to see what the world was going to look like outside of lubricants in the digital space, and primarily around car service, but not solely around car service.
Oh, interesting, because that means as someone in marketing that you're looking at both product development as well as maybe new ways to connect with consumers.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a pretty big role.
New segments, new channels, how the consumer will work in the future around the new digital opportunities that come their way, and what that'll mean for our brand.
From there, it sounds like you're also involved in an innovation group within the company. And does that mean that you work with various product people, or how does that work?
The group that was formed is actually an internal group that's separate from the business groups.
Okay, so, and what do you call that then?
Innoventures. So it's Castrol Innoventures.
Okay.
And I would describe it as partly a joint venture type investment group, and partly a business opportunity, business development group.
Now let's just talk a little bit about how your group works within the company. Do you become like the creative impetus for people, or do you have to train them into thinking differently so that they might come to you with solutions, or how does that all work?
Well, Innoventures, because we're focused on non-core lubricants areas, there was somewhat of a distinction between what the business was doing and what Innoventures was doing, which was a good thing because we were able to focus and not be overmanaged by immediate needs of the business, because we tended to be looking 5 and 10 years out.
Okay.
And that's been successful, and we've made close to a dozen investments in different companies. And part of my job is to nurture the companies that are in my space that we're working with, and also look at what other investments we may want to make that would support kind of our thinking as to where we want to develop this digital brand and where it's going to go. As we have been successful as a group over the last 5 or 6 years, the bigger BP downstream has recognized that. And the person who is leading our group is now leading a task force to look at the broader BP, what will we do across downstream. So downstream in an oil company is what comes out of the ground, what you do with it. So it's refining, it's retail gas, it's lubricants, it's those pieces. So we're going to try to do what Innoventures has been doing on a broader scale for BP.
With all of this, with a wonderful role like that, what is the biggest concern that you have in terms of industry issues, or in terms of your own worries as you balance innovation and digital? What's the biggest challenge?
So there's a few. One is just how to keep on top of everything that's new and different and changing. And that's a challenge, just to be able to read as much as is published, and disseminate between the things that you don't think are important and the things that you do think are important. So that's a kind of a daily challenge. The other challenge is to make sure you're touching enough bases and have the network available to you so you don't miss those opportunities that are the startups that are going to make a difference.